One little child ran up to his grandmother. The grandmother was knitting a sweater. The child said, Dadiji, what are you doing? The grandmother said, I am knitting a sweater for you, my child. The child looked and he said, Dadiji, this is so chaotic. There's a whole lot of woolen threads going crisscross. This is not a sweater. Dadiji said, from your side, it appears to be chaotic. Come over to my side and take a look. Now the child came over and sat in his grandmother's lap and he took a look. He said, wow, now I can understand the pattern that is unfolding. In the same way, from our limited perspective as the Jeev, as the soul, the events of this world, the happenings sometimes seem to be so chaotic, absurd, and meaningless. Our perspective is like that little innocent child who lacked the knowledge. But from the side of God, there is a pattern that is unfolding. Even in the apparently chaotic events, there is deep meaning and significance. So, what is the meaning and the significance in the pandemic that has struck our planet Earth in present times? That is the question that is paramount in the minds of those who are philosophically inclined. We want to make sense of these happenings. What is the message being conveyed here? What does God want us to learn? Why is He making us suffer? I am reminded of the rhapsodian effect. Very often you must have experienced that you entered a dark room and you could not see anything there at all. But you just waited for a little while and slowly the pupils dilated. And then you could see enough to manage your way to the switchboard or wherever. This is called the rhapsodian effect. In the darkness, slowly the eyes adjust. And then you say, yes, 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 now I can work my way through. So similarly, when such an episode hits us, we are thrown into the darkness of confusion. What is going on here? But if we are patient and introspective, and we look with pragya chakshu, shastra chakshu, these are the eyes of the scriptures, then we can see in the apparent chaos as well. There is a pattern that is unfolding. There is a deeper meaning to the events that are happening. How do we acquire the perspective that will enable us to see the modern day events in the divine light? For this, we will have to use a faculty that God has given us. Apart from the soul, that is the superior faculty. This is the buddhi, the intellect. We will have to use our intellect. Does that mean that those who have higher IQs can figure this puzzle of the pandemic virus better than those with lower IQs? Absolutely not. This IQ term is a misnomer. In the late 19th century, French scientists first coined this term intelligence quotient, and they saw it as a singular measure of our intellectual faculty, like you have the horsepower of an engine. So for many, many decades, right into the through the first part of the 20th century, IQ was used to measure people's abilities and aptitudes and as an eligibility for qualification into jobs. However, one researcher called Daniel Goleman, he came up with this concept called EQ, emotional quotient. He said there are people who are expert in figuring out mathematical riddles, but their own emotions are all jumbled up. That is why this term nerd has become very popular. A nerd is somebody who is very intelligent in academics, but socially obtuse when it comes to understanding others and handling them. So this term emotional quotient, EQ, then started becoming popular. And Daniel Goleman, in fact, did a study of 200 major organizations of the world to show how higher EQ of the executives directly correlated to better performance of the organization. But then Mr. Howard Gardner came up with a concept of multiple intelligences in his book Frames of Reference. He said, look, this intelligence is not like a horsepower of an engine. There are varieties of intelligences. Somebody has got mathematical ability. Somebody is super expert in verbal ability. A third person has got visuospatial ability. A fourth person is expert in physical ability. Another is expert in musical ability. So these 5 kinds of intelligence, then he said intrapersonal intelligence, understanding yourself, which is EQ, and interpersonal intelligence, which is social intelligence. So these breaking up of various intelligences made sense, because you see somebody is so expert in music and so terrible in mathematics. Nevertheless, for the purpose of our spiritual discourse, we wish to study an 8th kind of intelligence. And this concept has got popular just about 1 decade ago. This is called spiritual intelligence, or SQ. So while social scientists are grappling with this concept and how to define it, I would like to explain a little about what is spiritual intelligence and how it will help us make sense of what is going on in the world. So instead of dividing intelligence into 7 or 15 or 100, I would like to divide intelligence into 4 parts. The first to develop in life is called physical intelligence. What is that? When we are born, for the first 2 years, the major things we struggle with is handling our own body. Mother has left me sitting. How do I maintain my balance? This also requires intelligence. Now I've been made to stand up. How do I control my musculoskeletal system? Now I have to start walking, then start running. So this is the first intelligence that starts blossoming in our human life. And then we enter school. The next intelligence comes into play, which is cognitive intelligence. To understand problems, analyze them, and try and solve them. Whether they are verbal, whether they are mathematical, whether they are visuospatial, through our primary and middle school, the main focus is on growing the cognitive intelligence. And then when we become teenagers, now life becomes more complex. We enter into a network of relationships. We need to understand others. We need to understand what's going on within our minds. The third intelligence grows. This is the emotional intelligence. The ability to understand your emotions, the ability to understand the emotions of others, the ability to control your emotions. And then, as young adults, it's not that the other intelligences stop growing, but one becomes the focus. So, as young adults, many people start developing the SQ, or the spiritual intelligence. And what is the spiritual intelligence? It tries to make meaning, find a sense of purpose in life. This term SQ is so interesting. I tried to do a research. People are floundering around with how to explain it. This is how I would like to put it. SQ, or spiritual intelligence, which starts manifesting as young adults. Some children, it starts blossoming by the age of 15, sometimes even earlier, usually when they've got their, either in the post-graduation or jobs and professionals. It has got four aspects to it. First is self-awareness. In other words, awareness of who am I? Am I a name? Am I a designation? Am I the body? Am I the soul? And what are my goals in life? What do I stand for? What are my value systems? What are my beliefs? So this self-awareness is the first aspect of spiritual intelligence. The second, universal awareness, that I am not disconnected from the entire universe. I am a little part of a huge system. So as an integral part of the huge system, I am subject to the laws of the universe. Spiritual intelligence then makes us introspect. There is a law of karma. There is a relationship I have with all creation and with the Creator. So this sense of interconnectedness is the second aspect of SQ. And then the third aspect, this is self-mastery. Not just self-awareness, but now the aspiration has arisen that I wish to align my life with the higher goals I have defined for myself. And now I wish to start mastering my emotions, my thoughts, my senses, mind, intellect. So self-mastery and my life mastery to make my life productive the way I want. So this self-mastery is the third aspect. And the fourth aspect. The fourth aspect is to be able to utilize my God-given talents and abilities in a productive and effective manner for a higher cause. Are we okay?
Yeah, we
Okay.
we can see you. We can see you and hear you.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. So I was explaining the fourth one is utilize your God given talents and abilities for a higher purpose, however you have defined it, in the service of humankind or for the pleasure of God. These four aspects of spiritual intelligence. Now, this spiritual intelligence, most of you have been groomed in the Indian culture and the Indian traditions. And that is why we are proud to say that such spiritual intelligence comes easily and naturally to us. Because from childhood, we have been ingrained to see the unity in all of creation. How is this world being manifested? Now, all the theistic religious traditions of the world inform us that there is a supreme entity who has created this world. So, our Sanatan Vedic Dharma goes one step forward. Vishvam Vishvareshancha Vishvesham Vishvakaranam Vishwadharancha Vishwastham Vishvakarana Karanam Vishvaraksha Karanam cha Vishwagnam Vishwajamparam. It explains that the Supreme Lord is the Nimit Upadan Karan, cause of this creation. What does that mean? See, He is the creator. This philosophers around the world have figured out. But what was the material with which He created the universe? So the Vedas say He is Nimit Karan and Upadan Karan. The material also came from Him. In other words, He extracted His energy, and that energy He unfolded to manifest all of creation. The Mundak Upanishad states, Yathornanabhi srijate grihnate cha yatha prithivya moshadaya sambhavanti yatha sata purushat keshalomani tatha ksharat sambhavati vishvam. The Mundak Upanishad is telling us such an invaluable philosophic concept. It says, observe the trees that grow from the earth. Where did the raw material come from? The earth itself. Observe the hair that comes out of human beings. It's their own body that is growing as hair. Take a look at the spider. It weaves a web. But where does the raw material for the web come from? From the spider itself. In other words, the spider transforms a portion of itself into the web. And when the web is no longer required, the spider takes it back into itself. Similarly, the Mundak Upanishad states that God manifested the world from His own self. He extracted His material energy, Maya, and that material energy, under His governance, created the world. Maya Dhakshena Prakriti. That is why our scriptures say that God has Himself become the world. Now, talk about the interconnectedness of things. God has Himself become the world. Hence, the vision of the great saints is what? Ishavasmidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyan jagat. The Ishavasya Upanishad first mantra states the entire world is God Himself. Purusha eve dagvam sarvam yadbhutam yaccha bhavyam. The Purusha Suktam states everywhere is God. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. The Bhagavad Gita states Vasudev is everywhere. Siya Ramamay Sab Jagajani. The Ramayana states, know the whole world to be the veritable form of Sita Ram. Now imagine what a tremendous vision, what a unfathomable sense of interconnectedness. That is why in the Srimad Bhagavat Puran, this point is stated again and again. Dravyam karma cha kalascha swabhavo jiva eva cha vasudevat paro brahman nopayo nyosti kutrachit. Vasudevat paro brahman. Everywhere is Vasudev, Sri Krishna. That is why the beej of the Srimad Bhagavat Mahapuran, which is 18,000 shlokas, its beej seed is 4 shlokas. So this is called the Chatushloki Bhagavat. And this Chatushloki Bhagavat was spoken at the beginning of creation by Lord Narayan into the heart of the firstborn Brahma. And it was on the basis of these 4 shlokas that Brahmaji created all that we have around. So we come to know from the Puranas that when Brahmaji was born on the lotus flower, he looked around and only saw an ocean of coarse energy. There was only Shakti. Even the elements, Prithvi, Jal, Tej, Vayu, Akash, they got created by Brahma. So none of these existed. Brahmaji didn't know who he is and what he's supposed to do. So he discovered the lotus and he entered the stem and he continued. But it was not ending. So he retrieved his steps. And when he sat back again in the meditational posture, he could hear the waves of the ocean. They were going tapa, tapa, tapa. So he thought the message I'm getting is to perform tapasya or austerities. When he performed his austerities and they were complete, Lord Narayan revealed himself. And he spoke these 4 verses. This is the Chatushloki Bhagavat. And the first verse that he spoke was Ahameva samevagre nanyadyat sadasat param paschadaham yadetaccha yovashishyeta sosmyaham. He said, Brahmaji, when there was no creation, at the time of Mahapralaya dissolution, I alone existed. Now, whatever exists in the form of creation is my very self. Where creation ceases, let's say you go in a straight line, you have to come to a point where creation ends. What is beyond that? He says, beyond that is me. And when creation gets dissolved once again at the time of Mahapralaya, what will remain is me alone. Brahmaji, there is nothing apart from me in creation. This is a tremendous vision. The Narad Pancharatra states that just like the one sun by its various energies is pervading the solar system, similarly, the one supreme divine entity by his infinite energies is pervading all of material and spiritual creations. So everything is interconnected with God. Everything is a manifestation of his energy. And the Vedas go even further. Now, Maya is an energy of God, but the Vedas say that God is sitting inside it as well. He is Sarva Vyapak, all pervading. When we develop this understanding, then how can we ever question there is this macro event happening without the will of God? Our scriptures tell us that God is sitting inside every atom of his creation. So everything that happens is by his sanction. When we accept that, then it means there is a deeper plan beyond what is happening, which we may not be able to understand with our finite intellect. That makes us stand back and think, yes, if God is all good, he will never do bad. If he has in his divine wisdom thought it necessary for the world to experience a pandemic, there must be some big teaching that he is wishing to convey to us. As the saying goes, that when God wishes to give us a gift, he wraps it up in problems. And the bigger the gift, the bigger the problems. So when the earth has got this huge problem, it's possible that God wishes to give us a very big gift through this. There was once a construction site. The supervisor was on the second floor, third floor. Second floor in India is third floor in USA. So I'm speaking to you from India today. So from your point of view, the third floor, the supervisor was there and there was a construction worker on the ground. The supervisor wanted to say something to him and he wanted to grab his attention. So he spoke out, but the construction worker did not pay attention. The supervisor then said what to do. He took a dollar bill and he threw it. The dollar bill landed on the ground. The construction worker saw, oh, so nice. He took it and pocketed it. The supervisor threw a $5 bill. Construction worker saw, oh, so nice. He pocketed it. The supervisor threw a $10 bill. The same thing got repeated. Finally, in frustration, the supervisor, he took a pebble and knocked the construction worker on the head with it. Now the worker looked up. So in the same way, God gives us good education and we forget all about it. He gives us a good job and we say, okay, this is the purpose of life. He gives us wealth and prosperity and we forget that we are even supposed to remember him who gave us life. So finally, God says, now what to do? The only way to grab your attention is to hit you on the head with this pebble. And that is why these sufferings and miseries, they come to remind us that the purpose of life was not to become comfortable and enjoy luxury and opulence here. Life was given to us as a sublime gift of the divine for a much higher purpose, to fulfill the evolutionary journey of our soul, which has been continuing from so many lifetimes, to either utilize the present life to reach the ultimate perfection, or if not, at least to move ahead from where we were in the past life. This becomes a difference in perspectives. The natural materialistic perspective is what? I want to be more comfortable. I want to have more luxury. I want to have more opulence. And the spiritual perspective is, I wish to grow. It is not the comforts which is my goal. It is the growth of my soul which is the goal. And the fact of the matter is that there is nothing that challenges us more than adversity. It forces us to pay attention. It forces us to exert ourselves. It forces us to go deep within, to search for answers, to find the wisdom to handle new situations. And that is why this adversity is an unavoidable aspect of the journey of human life. Kasyaikantam sukhamupagatam dukkhamekantato va nichair gacchatyuparichadasha chakrame nikramena. In this Valmiki Ramayana, this episode comes that when Lord Ram went for Vanvas, the first night he spent on the banks of the river Tamasa. And then the second night he reached Ganga Tat, Sringabirpur. So that is where he met Nishad Raj. So when Lord Ram was resting, Nishad Raj and Lakshman were awake all night. They were discussing. And Nishad Raj was expressing his frustration that so much of misery and I just cannot tolerate. The Lord of the universe is resting on the hard earth like this. He's going to go into the forest. It is all the fault of that terrible Kaikai. He was cursing Kaikai. And at that time, we see this Swarup, this form of Lakshman as a Jnani, where he explains to Nishad Raj that, look, this is the nature of the world. Just like the hand of the needle, it is up and then it comes down. And again it goes up and again it comes down. Similarly, in this world as well, there are all cycles. The day is followed by the night. The night is followed by the day. You have winter and then summer, you have spring and you have monsoon. The seasons continue one after the other after the other. The way people, we tend to forget this dual nature of the world. When things are favorable, we forget. Then the other side can also come. And that is why people experience frustration. Now, the moment the child is born, all parents think, my child will be the next Shravan Kumar. Well, when he grows up and he becomes Rakshas Kumar, hey Bhagavan, main to mara, why did this happen to me? But can you not see around in the world? It is happening to so many parents. You should have been prepared for all kinds of outcomes. When Lord Ram himself, he showed that although he is the master of the universe, the seesawing roller coaster nature of human life, he was going to be coronated the next day. And overnight, he had to put on the forest attire and go for Vanvas. So, when we understand that this is how the world is, we are obliged to handle all kinds of situations. And that is what God wants us to do. You see, he explains who is an enlightened soul. Not somebody who never gets misery and suffering. Then, an enlightened soul is one, sukhe dukhe same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau, who can take suffering and happiness, misery and joy, both in the same stride. So God never says, okay, if you follow my path, you will only get happiness. God says, you follow my spiritual path and I'll make you such that you will rise above this experience of material happiness and material distress. That will give you the sense of peace, the inner peace, which will not be dependent on circumstances, which cannot be snatched away by material things, by weathers, etc., which is not dependent on the objects of the senses. This is the inner peace that comes by growing spiritually from within. That peace requires us to negotiate the difficult situations and pass with flying colors. One disciple went to his guru and he said, Gurudev, you know, I've got this financial burden and this family problem and this professional harassment problem and so many issues. How can I do sadhana? They are always weighing on my mind. Gurudev said, you know, in these times, the best sadhana is, despite all the difficulties, to remain calm, to remain peaceful. That is spiritual progress. So, in this matter, when difficulties come, when hardships come, we should not feel discouraged. They are only here for a little while. And they too will pass away. One father, he had 4 sons. So to teach them a lesson, he told one of his sons in the winter, you know, there is that huge tree at the end of our field. Go and take a look at it and come back. So that son, he went and took a look. He saw that the tree was all dry. The leaves had fallen off. It was crooked and ugly. The next son, the father sent in the spring. That son took a look at the tree and came back thinking, well, my brother, he was incorrect when he said that it is ugly and dry. It had these buds and it looked so full of promise. Now the father sent the next son in the summer and he said, come and describe it. He said, father, it was so full of blossoms of the most beautiful flowers. The fourth son was sent in the autumn. And he returned and said, father, it was bearing these fruits. It was so luscious. The father said, that is the lesson I wanted to convey to you all. That just like the four seasons, there are seasons in your life. Things get easy, things get difficult. The important ability is the forbearance, the inner strength to carry on. And when we handle these difficult situations, we discover that we grow in the face of them. A saying in English goes, a smooth sea never maketh a skillful sailor. Somebody who wishes to be skillful must have negotiated difficult seas. Only that person will become an adept sailor. Similarly, if you wish to grow your SQ, the more problems and challenges you have gone through, the wiser you will have become. Somebody said, I prayed to God to make me wise. He gave me problems to solve that I may grow in wisdom. I prayed to God to make me strong. He gave me challenges to overcome that I may develop inner strength. I prayed to God for courage. He gave me dangers to surmount that I may develop lion-like courage. I prayed to God for love. He gave me the poor and the downtrodden to serve that I may develop the quality of love. My prayers were answered, not by getting what I wanted, but by getting what I needed. Similarly, in his divine wisdom, God may have felt that some messages needed to be learned. In our exuberance and arrogance of scientific advancement, humankind, scientists as a body, had developed this attitude that we have the answers to everything. We can even play God. We can even play God. So, this coronavirus has taught us the simple lesson. Look, a little virus has brought the whole world to a standstill. The lesson here for humankind is humbleness. If we know so much, we should remember there's so much of which we have no knowledge. The true wisdom, vidya dadati vinayam, should make us humble. That is the inspiration we receive from Isaac Newton. At the end of his life, he said, I was like a little child playing with pebbles on the seashore while the whole undiscovered ocean lay in front of me. And the second lesson here is to remember what is important in our life. The things that we laid so much of importance to, in this situation, we realize that our values had gotten warped. And the third lesson is to remember how temporary this world is. Anything can be snatched away from us in a moment. Like this, there are so many takeaways. And I would say the biggest lesson for humankind here is to introspect and try and discover the purpose of life. Because we may enjoy, we may be rich, we may be wealthy, but are we fulfilling the reason why God sent us here? And these kind of pandemics, they humble us, they help us develop a little bit more faith in the Supreme Creator, they make us more philosophic. So the purpose of these difficulties is not to knock us out. The purpose is to lift us up. That is the attitude we should take, like the eagle. The eagle utilizes the gust of wind to go even higher. Very often, I see this when I walk on rooftops. You all must have seen it also, that the eagle is pestered by crows. Although a crow is much smaller, an eagle is a huge bird. But these crows are so pesky, they come in a group. It's called a murder of crows. And they dive bomb the eagle. So because they are smaller, they are more maneuverable. And the eagle, being a bigger bird, cannot turn around so easily. So the crows, they come, 2 and 3 of them, and they wish to dive bomb the eagle. But the eagle does not engage with them. हाथी अपनी चाल चलत है, कुकर भुकत वाको भुकवा दे, तू तो राम सुमिर. If an elephant enters a village, the dogs start barking. Now, if the elephant says, how dare you bark at me? That will be unbecoming of the elephant. The elephant just continues to bark. Let the dogs bark. The same is the majesty and the grace of the eagle. It does not engage with these nasty crows. It just lifts itself higher and higher and higher and higher until the crows cannot reach. So similarly, when hardships and difficulties are sent our way, we should not become confused. We should remember with the rhapsodian effect, think deep, try and find the deeper pattern behind it all. And remember, it's happened by the sanction of God for the well-being of humankind, to make us grow in our spiritual journey, to reach the ultimate perfection. That is why I had titled this talk, Soar Like the Eagle in the Face of Difficulties and Hardships.